We've probably all thought, should I buy my first property established or should I build? The big unknown for me, and maybe you, is exactly how that building process works. This episode, I have Dave Hillman from Fairmont Homes to walk me through exactly that, opening up the process so you and I can understand if maybe building is a better option for our first home. My name is Nicola Kefalianos, and this is my First Home Buyer Mentor, where my dad and other experts walk me through everything we need to know about getting onto the property ladder. So Dave, would you be able to tell me a little bit about yourself and why you like helping first home buyers?
Yeah, certainly. So thanks for having me on your show. I've been doing it for around 13 years now, so a long time helping first home buyers get into their home. It's really rewarding and achieving, helping them get into their budget, work a design that they want, and helping them get into their first home, which is really exciting. Do
you mind if we just jump straight into the questions?
Yeah, go for it. Yep.
So do you think we need to buy land first before we build?
No, they certainly don't have to buy land first. They can come to us with a budget in mind, and hopefully they've spoken to a broker.
Yep.
And then we can help them find house and lands as well too.
So ensuring like pre-approval and their finances is in place and then coming to you, someone like you.
Yeah, absolutely. We hope they've chatted to a broker, and if not, we can recommend someone they can chat to. Yeah.
Cool. Can you explain a little bit more why you don't actually need to buy land first?
Yeah, because it depends on when they chat to their broker. Sometimes customers actually need to do a house and land package depending on their finance situation.
Yeah.
And some banks prefer they actually do a house and land loan together, which obviously the builder can help do and accommodate for their finance.
So instead of two separate loans?
Yeah, that's right. And they'll have a house and land loan together.
How would first home buyers figure out what design is best for them?
So generally we start with what their budget is on what they want to stick to, and then we would sit down and work out what their design requirements, what their must-haves and what their wants are, and then work it through with them what we can get in their budget. We are a really achievable price point as well too, affordable price point, so we can work in their budget what they want to get.
So really establishing what their wants and needs are. We've talked about that previously, so that's been a major 3 things for all first home buyers when they're building especially.
Absolutely, and I think transparency is the biggest thing in that, just being full transparency up front to what they want, and as are we, to what they can get and what we can get them in a home.
In order to stick to their budget.
Correct, in order to stick to the budget, yep.
So for someone who might be working with a smaller budget, how would they be able to get bang for buck?
Yeah, so we would work out what design they're looking at, and then we would sit down with them, work out the best design that is going to suit that budget as well too, without going too big. If they go a massive design, obviously that's going to cost a lot more. And then it comes down to all little things like what facade they choose. We can help guide them on certain facades cheaper than other, but still look really good. But you can save certain money if you go different facades. Mm-hmm. And then even internal things in the home, if you choose different floor coverings, we can help save money that way depending on what they're choosing.
So just little things. Yeah. Can you give some examples about things like that could elevate the home on a smaller budget?
To save money or to
stick within their budget, say if they've got a smaller budget but they still want to be able to sell and like compare it to other houses
absolutely.
In the market.
So generally when it comes to inside, so stuff like carpets to the bedrooms, floating floors to the main living areas is generally most cost-effective option. Mm-hmm. And then on the front facade, you can do things like a render finish to the front, some render brick piers. It depends where they're building and what estate to what requirements they're going to need on the front of the house as well too.
Yeah. So what do I need to know about land if I did buy it first?
If you did buy it first, come in and have a chat to a builder, and then obviously we can have a look at the block and go through it with you and analyse some of the key things. Obviously, what sort of services does it have? Does it have power, sewer, water, gas, all the main services there? Yeah. Is it a flat block? Is it a sloping block? So we have the ability to look that up with the customer.
Yeah.
You know, is it going to need retaining? Questions like that. So we will help guide them on all of that. And then also, if they're buying in a certain estate, you know, does it have any design encumbrances that it needs to adhere to build the house in that?
So what did you mean by encumbrances? Are they like something like terms and conditions?
A little bit. So in certain land estates where they'll sell land, there'll be certain things you might need to do on the front of the house to keep the houses uniformed in that area. So one of the encumbrances might be it needs 450mm eaves to the house, or it needs a 25-degree roof pitch, or it might need a couple of different materials to the front facade. So there's generally a design guidelines when you buy in one of those estates, and the builder will know about this to help guide the first home buyer.
So essentially things you need to abide by to be able to build in that certain estate.
Absolutely, yeah.
How long would you say building actually takes?
Yep, so the whole process, we'd say it's around an 18 to 20 month process.
Okay.
But I can go into more detail because it is quite a...
Did you want to step through some of the
Absolutely.
processes?
So generally, once the customer is ready with their plans all drawn up, the price is all done, their budget's all finished, right?
Yep.
The first step would then be paying a deposit, and we go and do the soil testing, because we've got to do the soil testing, the engineering on the block to work out how deep their footings need to be.
Okay, so that would be your first step?
That's the first step. That generally takes about 10 to 12 weeks to get done. And then we come back with a fixed price contract to the customer, which is 100% fixed price.
So that won't change?
That won't change. No.
At all?
Yep, no, absolutely not. So it's very good to know that, and that's why they pay that deposit to do the engineering, and then the contract is 100% fixed price with us. And then after they sign that, they'll pay another deposit. It goes through council.
Yep.
And that's when they'll do selections, all the fun things as well in there. We take care of all the council guidelines for the customer. You know, they've got selections, interior design girls to help them guide them through all of that. And then obviously that part's around 5 months, and then the build at the end is about 10 to 12 months, which is why we say all up about 18 to 20 months. And just to clarify on that as well too, it's from when the block titles as well too.
Okay. So as a first home buyer, that seems pretty simple because most of the work's done for me. So pretty much all I need to do is my selections.
That's right, yeah. Yeah, and there's someone to help you go through all through that as well too.
Yeah.
Yep.
There's actually a couple things I want you to open up on.
Yep.
What did you mean by when the block titles?
Yep, so when the block titles, it means when the land is ready, so all the roads and curbs are done.
Okay.
And the block is officially ready for the customer to settle. But not only that, we as a builder, we can send, because all the roads and curbs are done and the block's ready to go, we can send our engineers out to the block and to do the soil testing, because all the roads and curbs need to be in order to do that.
Okay. So how long would it take from the time I come to a display home and meet you to the actual design process?
Yeah, that's a really good question. So we generally have a few meetings with the customer during that phase as well too.
Yeah.
Obviously, the first meeting is working out budget and design. But then obviously once they've chosen that and we've worked through them, done some rough pricing, a house quote for them on a particular design.
Yeah.
If that's a design they choose, then we get it drawn up in our internal office with our draftees. And that takes around 3 to 4 weeks. So we can basically have it ready from that first meeting in the display home. We do some rough pricing, then we get it drawn in detail. Generally around 3 to 4 weeks later, we'll have everything ready, all the plans drawn in full detail, all the full detailed quotes ready.
That's pretty quick.
Yeah, ready to pay a deposit to move on from there.
So what are generally the standard block sizes?
So generally in the estates where they're releasing sort of big chunks of land, they're generally sort of 10 by 30 deep or 10 by 32s. So, you know, around the 320 square metres, or some of them slightly wider, so it'd be 12 and a half wide by 30 deep or 34 deep. So generally they cut them up sort of 10 metres wide, 12 and a half, sometimes 15s if you're lucky. The bigger ones are harder to find now. So that's the standard sort of what they do in those estates. It's cheaper for a first home buyer if they stick to a standard plan on one of those blocks. It'll certainly save them money. If you're looking for individual block, let's say you're Googling on real estate, you find a one-off block and it's 11 metres wide, the house plan, we can modify it for that, so we can still work with that.
But then does that become a custom build?
It becomes a custom build, so we're lucky because we can modify our plans to suit that block as well too, whereas some of the other builders out there can cost a lot more for custom.
So when we're on our hunt for a block size, make sure it's between the 10 to 12 frontage size by the 30 metres deep and things.
Yeah, that's right. And we'll be able to accommodate a design in that, and it will certainly save them money on going like a standard design.
So back to when you were talking about fixed prices, is that standard? Does everyone do that or just your company?
So no, Fairmont Homes definitely offers full fixed price contracts. Not, unfortunately, every builder does. Every builder's got a different process. So the customer definitely needs to ask that question.
So that would be probably one of the first questions you need to ask.
Absolutely, yeah.
Because fixed price won't change any of your costs, and then you can remain within your budget.
Then they've got no scary surprises at the end. We don't hand them any variations or anything like that down the track, so that it's a peace of mind for the first home buyer. They know what they're going to spend.
So that's an advantage.
Absolutely, yeah.
So what would happen if things do go wrong and someone doesn't have a fixed price contract? How would you handle that situation?
So some of the builders, if they don't have a fixed price contract, unfortunately they can get variations down the track, like either sometimes while they're building or after they've signed the contract. They can get variations, and some of them are huge. Some of them can 10 grand, 20 grand, even. I've seen some real scary numbers. So they can get some huge variations down the track if it's not fixed.
And you wouldn't have to pay that up front though?
To basically continue on with the build, it still needs to get added into their bank loan. So if it is a non-fixed builder and they got hit with a variation, they would still have to come up with the money, either depending what their bank situation was. If they've got room to borrow it, get added in the bank loan.
Yeah.
If they don't, they're going to have to come up with whatever extra money
on their own.
On their own, which is really scary.
So what would be a solution to that, thinking about it from the very beginning, not encountering it when you get to the variations?
Absolutely. So we always recommend, if you are building to a budget, on whatever that budget, let's say it's 600,000, we'd always recommend to just give yourself a bit of a buffer. Don't max yourself out, spend all the way to the 600,000.
Yeah.
Because it is building, sometimes things can change. So give yourself a bit of a buffer. And maybe, spend a little bit less, 580, 590, and then that gives you a bit of wiggle room.
So to finish off, what would you say isn't included in your build package?
Yeah, absolutely. So when we sit down with someone and quote them up, so generally as a builder, or as Fairmont Homes builder, we can quote them up on everything fully finished internal, which means like your overhead cabinets, robes to the bedrooms, all your floor coverings throughout, so carpets, floating floors. We can even do, if there's an alfresco, we can do concrete to an alfresco as well. We can't do any of the external items, so we can't do your driveway, paving, landscaping.
So that's not included in the build cost?
That won't be included. You have to get that stuff done separately.
Okay.
Yep.
Just the driveways and things, or is there anything
So just
else?
the external items, so which is driveway, perimeter paving, landscaping, fencing. If there's any retaining on the block, clothesline, letterbox, those sort of small, they're commonly known as turnkey items, is what, if you've heard that term around.
Yeah, we've talked about that, but did you want to expand on that a little bit more?
So that's just a term commonly used in the industry. Turnkey items generally refers to all the external items to finish off the home. So obviously the builder will be doing all the internal stuff. Obviously bars, so I didn't mention before, internal blinds, that's obviously not included as well too.
Okay.
So they still have to do the window furnishings after as well. But yeah, all the turnkey items are all the external stuff not attached to the house.
Okay.
With a lot of the banks, when you have a particular budget, let's say your budget's 600,000 for house and land, we touched on it earlier, the banks might want that as, depending on which bank they're going through, as full turnkey, meaning all those external items in that price. So they'll have to get an external quote from someone else to do those external items in that total budget of what they need to stick to.
Okay. So even if it's not included, you need to make sure.
The banks are still going to need that quote. So we'll work with their budget and go, okay, is it 600,000 that their broker or bank says that they need it fully finished? And then we'll work back from that and go, okay, we know roughly the externals on this small block might be 30, 40 grand.
Okay.
They can spend, maybe 560 on a house and land, and then that gives them the buffer for the external ones. So we help them, guide them through that.
So if the building company doesn't help with the turnkey things, would I have to do that independently, or do you have contacts?
Yeah, so we can refer you to some external contacts on that.
Okay.
Or obviously you're welcome to shop around. A lot of people do like to do that. They'll get multiple quotes from different people to obviously try to save money as well too.
So my biggest takeaway from this show would be ensuring that the first home buyer goes to a building company with a fixed price contract. Would that be correct?
Absolutely, definitely.
Because otherwise someone might find a bit of a financial burden if they don't.
Yeah, absolutely. It's a peace of mind for them when they get a fixed price contract.
Hope you guys have found this episode helpful. If you've got any questions we didn't cover, leave them in the comments below. And make sure if you're listening on iTunes or Spotify to hit that follow button or subscribe on YouTube. My name's Nicola Kefalianos, and we'll see you on the next episode.